What if I told you that the roots of German DNA stretch back thousands of years, weaving a story that begins before there was even a country called Germany, before empires, borders, or even written history? There were the Germanic peoples, distinct tribes whose resilience and adaptability would come to shape not just Europe but the world. The story of German DNA begins in the Iron Age, with the Jastorf culture, a society that thrived near the Elbe River in what we now call northern Germany. These early people weren't just surviving, they were innovating. Archaeological evidence shows they mastered the art of farming, crafting tools, and trading goods, laying the groundwork for a thriving civilization. Their language, an early form of what would become the Germanic family of languages, began to evolve, setting them apart from their Celtic neighbors. This linguistic evolution wasn't random. Scholars attribute it to the first Germanic consonant shift, known as Grimm's Law. This change in pronunciation transformed words and sounds, marking a clear divergence from other Indo-European languages. It was the first signal that these people weren't just adapting to their environment, they were shaping their identity. Fast forward a few centuries, and we find the Germanic peoples making their mark on history in a dramatic fashion. Julius Caesar himself, during his campaigns in Gaul, took note of the tribes across the Rhine River. To him, they were a looming threat, a fiercely independent people, uninterested in assimilation into the Roman world. Caesar's writings were some of the first to document these tribes, describing them as formidable warriors who lived simple yet disciplined lives. But it wasn't just Caesar who took an interest in the Germanic tribes. The Roman historian Tacitus wrote Germania, a detailed account of their customs, governance, and way of life. According to Tacitus, these tribes valued loyalty, courage, and freedom above all else. These principles weren't just ideals, they were survival strategies in a world of constant conflict and shifting alliances. One of the most pivotal moments in the early history of German DNA came in 9 AD with the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. Here, a coalition of Germanic tribes, led by Arminius, decisively defeated 3 Roman legions. This wasn't just a military victory, it was a declaration of independence. The Germanic peoples wouldn't be subdued, and the Rhine River became a symbolic boundary between the Roman Empire and the unconquered Germanic world. What's fascinating is how this resistance to Roman control didn't prevent cultural exchange. For centuries, the Germanic tribes and the Romans traded goods, shared technologies, and even intermarried. This blending left subtle but lasting marks on the genetic makeup of the people who lived in these borderlands. It's a reminder that even in opposition, cultures influence one another. The fragmentation of the Germanic tribes after the fall of Rome laid the foundation for something unique: strong regional identities. Tribes like the Saxons, Franks, and Bavarians each carved out distinct territories, and these divisions persist in the DNA of their descendants. Modern Germans often find that their ancestry ties them to specific regions, each with its own rich history and traditions. This is just the beginning of the story. German DNA carries the echoes of these ancient tribes, proof of their resilience, adaptability, and unyielding spirit. It's a legacy written not just in history books but in the genetic code passed down through generations. Germany today might seem like a unified country, but its DNA tells a different story. A tapestry of diversity stitched together by history, migration, and geography. To truly understand German DNA, we need to explore the genetic map of this fascinating region and how it came to be. Modern Germany is home to over 80 million people, yet the genetic differences between its northern, southern, eastern, and western regions are striking. Why? The answer lies in how geography and history have shaped these populations. In the north, closer to the North Sea and Baltic coasts, you'll find genetic markers that link modern Germans to their Scandinavian neighbors. Thousands of years ago, this region was home to tribes like the Saxons, whose descendants carried their DNA across the sea to Britain. This genetic overlap explains why northern Germans often share traits like fair hair, blue eyes, and even a similar linguistic heritage with their Nordic cousins. Move south, and the story changes. Bavaria, nestled in the shadow of the Alps, holds a unique genetic identity that's distinct from the rest of Germany. Here, the DNA reflects centuries of mixing with neighboring populations, including Italians and Austrians. Southern Germans tend to have darker features, a genetic legacy of ancient migrations through the Alpine passes. But perhaps the most fascinating chapter in this story lies to the east. The Ostsiedlung, or eastward expansion, saw medieval Germans migrate into Slavic lands, including what is now Poland, the Czech Republic, and beyond. These settlers didn't just bring their culture, they brought their DNA. Over centuries, the German and Slavic populations intermarried, creating a genetic blending that's still evident in modern-day Germans from the eastern regions. Take Pomerania, for example, a historic region that straddles modern Germany and Poland. DNA from this area often reveals a fascinating mix of Germanic and Slavic ancestry. The same is true for Silesia and Mecklenburg, regions where German settlers lived side by side with Slavic communities for centuries. This eastward migration wasn't just a cultural exchange. It permanently altered the genetic makeup of Central Europe. Geography also played a major role in shaping German DNA. The Rhine River, for instance, wasn't just a natural boundary. It was a highway for trade and migration. Over centuries, it connected Germanic tribes to the Celts, Romans, and Franks, leaving behind genetic markers that reveal a melting pot of influences. Similarly, the Alps acted as both a barrier and a gateway, funneling migrants into southern Germany and leaving behind a genetic legacy unique to the region. What makes the German genetic story even more intriguing is how specific it can get. DNA testing companies like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe have identified genetic clusters that map directly to historic German territories. You might discover that your ancestors hailed from Franconia, Saxony, or the Rhineland, regions that have maintained distinct genetic identities for centuries. For example, if your DNA shows a connection to Upper Bavaria, you're likely carrying markers tied to alpine populations. If your ancestry points to northern Germany, it might reveal Scandinavian influences from Viking incursions or trading networks. And if your roots trace back to Mecklenburg, there's a good chance your DNA carries traces of the Ostsiedlung's blending of Germanic and Slavic ancestry. Even within Germany, these genetic clusters align with cultural and linguistic differences. Dialects, traditions, and even cuisine vary from region to region, echoing the genetic diversity that defines the country. Northern Germans might feel a cultural affinity with Scandinavia, while Bavarians often share more in common with Austrians. This genetic patchwork isn't just a reflection of the past, it's a living testament to the resilience and adaptability of the German people. Despite centuries of division and reunification, the DNA of modern Germans carries the story of countless migrations, invasions, and exchanges. It's a reminder that our genes are more than just markers of identity. They are living records of history. What does your DNA reveal about your connection to Germany? Does it tie you to a specific region, or does it hint at a story of migration and blending? As we dive deeper into the untold story of German DNA, you'll see that every genetic marker carries a clue, one that could lead you closer to understanding where you truly come from. German DNA isn't just a collection of genes. It's a storybook filled with unexpected connections and hidden chapters that span continents and centuries. From ancient migrations to modern diasporas, the tales encoded in German DNA go far beyond what we might expect. One of the most surprising revelations about German DNA is its deep connection to neighboring cultures. For centuries, Germany's central location in Europe made it a crossroads for trade, war, and migration. This means that German DNA frequently overlaps with that of neighboring groups, including the Dutch, Danish, French, and even Italians. Take, for example, the centuries-long relationship between Germany and France. Many might think of these two nations as historical rivals, but their shared border has facilitated a rich genetic exchange. Regions like Alsace-Lorraine, which shifted between French and German control multiple times, are prime examples of how intertwined these two cultures have become. DNA from this area often reflects markers from both sides of the Rhine, a testament to generations of cultural and genetic blending. Another fascinating connection lies to the north, where German DNA shares significant overlap with Scandinavian populations. This link dates back to the Viking Age, when Norse seafarers not only raided but also settled along the coasts of northern Germany. These interactions left a lasting mark, with modern DNA studies revealing Scandinavian genetic traits in Germans from regions like Schleswig-Holstein. But German DNA's story doesn't stop at Europe's borders. For centuries, Germany has been home to diverse communities whose genetic contributions have enriched its identity. One of the most prominent examples is the Jewish population, particularly Ashkenazi Jews, who have lived in Germany for over 1,000 years. Before the Holocaust, Germany was a cultural and intellectual hub for Jewish communities, and their DNA remains an integral part of the genetic landscape. The Roma people, often referred to as gypsies in historical contexts, also have a unique place in Germany's genetic story. Originating in northern India, the Roma migrated to Europe centuries ago, and many settled in Germany. Despite facing persecution, their genetic legacy is evident in the diversity of modern German DNA. German DNA is also shaped by the legacies of World War I and World War II, which caused unprecedented displacement and migration. During and after these conflicts, millions of Germans were expelled from Eastern Europe, including regions like Pomerania, Silesia, and East Prussia. These displaced populations carried their DNA to new locations, blending with local populations and creating entirely new genetic communities. In addition to the forced migrations, voluntary immigration also played a significant role in spreading German DNA around the globe. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, millions of Germans left their homeland in search of better opportunities. They settled in countries like the United States, Brazil, and Argentina, where their DNA mixed with that of local populations. Today, descendants of these immigrants often discover German ancestry through DNA testing, sparking a newfound connection to their roots. Consider the case of the Volga Germans, a group invited by Catherine the Great to settle along Russia's Volga River in the 18th century. For generations, they maintained their German culture and language despite living far from their homeland. Their unique genetic markers reflect both their German origins and their centuries-long residence in Russia, creating a fascinating blend of identities. But perhaps the most personal stories hidden in German DNA are those of migration within the country itself. Over centuries, Germans moved from region to region in search of farmland, work, or safety from conflict. These movements created subtle but distinct genetic differences between regions. For instance, someone with ancestry in Bavaria might find markers indicating Alpine influences, while a person from the Rhineland could discover traces of Celtic or Roman heritage. German DNA also carries the echoes of resilience. Even in the face of immense hardship, from the 30 Years' War to the Holocaust, the genetic story of the German people has endured. It's a story of survival and adaptation, a reminder of the strength embedded in every lineage. Each genetic marker, each haplogroup, is a thread in a vast tapestry that connects the past to the present. What surprises might your DNA hold? Could it link you to a forgotten migration, a long-lost community, or an unexpected cultural connection? The answers are waiting to be discovered, hidden in the code of your German DNA. Have you ever wondered what your DNA can tell you about where you come from? German DNA, with its rich and intricate history, offers some of the most fascinating insights into personal ancestry. Thanks to modern technology, uncovering the secrets of your German roots has never been easier or more exciting. The journey begins with a DNA test. Companies like Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, and MyHeritage analyze your genetic material, comparing it to millions of samples worldwide to pinpoint your ancestry. What makes these tests so remarkable is their ability to identify not just your connection to Germany but to specific regions and genetic communities within it. For example, your results might reveal ties to Bavaria in the south, Saxony in the east, or Schleswig-Holstein in the north. Each region tells its own unique story, woven into the larger narrative of German history. So, how does it work? DNA testing relies on something called genetic markers, tiny sequences of DNA passed down from your ancestors. These markers are compared to reference samples to find matches. For Germans, these markers often trace back to historic migrations, such as the movement of the Germanic tribes, the eastward expansion of the Middle Ages, or even the upheavals of the World Wars. By analyzing these patterns, scientists can uncover the paths your ancestors took over thousands of years. One of the most exciting aspects of DNA testing is its ability to highlight haplogroups, genetic lineages that date back tens of thousands of years. For those with German ancestry, common haplogroups include R1b, associated with ancient Indo-European migrations, and I1, often linked to the Viking Age. These haplogroups are like ancestral footprints, showing how your forebears moved across continents long before Germany as a nation existed. But the real magic happens when your DNA connects you to genetic communities. These communities represent clusters of people who share common ancestors and often align with specific historical or geographical regions. Imagine discovering that your ancestors belong to the eastern Bavarian highlands or the Pomeranian region along the Baltic Sea. Each discovery offers a deeper understanding of not just where you come from but how your ancestors lived. Take the story of someone whose DNA connects them to Upper Franconia in southern Germany. Their results reveal a long lineage of pastoralists who farmed the fertile lands of Bavaria, with markers that trace back to the Celtic and Roman periods. Or consider a person with ties to Mecklenburg in the north, whose DNA reflects the blending of Germanic and Slavic populations during the Middle Ages. These are the kinds of stories DNA testing can uncover, bringing history to life in a way that's both personal and profound. For many, DNA testing isn't just about discovering where their ancestors came from. It's about making emotional connections. Imagine the thrill of learning that your family's migration mirrored major historical events, like the Ostsiedlung or the mass emigration of Germans to the Americas. Some even use DNA to uncover lost family connections, finding long-lost relatives and piecing together family stories that had been forgotten. And the discoveries don't stop at Germany's borders. Many people are surprised to learn that their German DNA carries traces of neighboring cultures. You might find markers from Scandinavia, France, or Poland, reflecting the interconnected nature of European history. Or you could uncover unexpected links to distant regions, like Jewish or Roma ancestry, adding layers of complexity to your genetic story. For those ready to embark on their own DNA journey, it's important to know what to expect. Your results won't just show percentages, they'll include maps, timelines, and even migration routes that tell a vivid story of your ancestry. You'll learn how your ancestors moved through Europe, where they settled, and how their lives were shaped by the events of their time. It's a powerful reminder that your DNA is more than a code. It's a record of history, written in your genes. But remember, DNA testing is just the beginning. Once you've discovered your genetic connections, you can dive deeper into historical records, family trees, and local archives to fill in the details. Germany, with its extensive genealogical resources, offers a wealth of information for those eager to explore their heritage. So, what secrets might your DNA hold? Could it reveal an ancient migration, a forgotten lineage, or a connection to a place you've never even heard of? With just a simple test, you can unlock the untold story of your German ancestry and discover the part your family played in history's greatest chapters. German DNA doesn't just tell the story of a single nation, it's a global legacy. Over centuries, German ancestry has spread across continents, leaving an indelible mark on science, art, politics, and culture. Understanding this legacy gives us a deeper appreciation of how German DNA has shaped not only individuals but also entire societies. Let's start with Germany's influence within Europe. German thinkers, scientists, and artists have profoundly shaped Western civilization. From the classical compositions of Ludwig van Beethoven and Johann Sebastian Bach to the groundbreaking theories of Albert Einstein, German DNA has propelled some of humanity's greatest achievements. These contributions are not random. They are the result of a culture steeped in innovation and resilience, traits reflected in the DNA passed down through generations. But the reach of German DNA extends far beyond Germany's borders. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, millions of Germans emigrated to North America, South America, Australia, and beyond, spreading their genetic legacy around the world. Today, people of German descent form significant populations in countries like the United States, Brazil, Canada, and Argentina. These communities brought not only their traditions but also their genes, blending them with local populations and creating unique genetic mosaics. Take the United States, for instance. Germans were among the largest immigrant groups to settle there, particularly in states like Pennsylvania, where the Pennsylvania Dutch community has preserved German traditions for centuries. Their DNA, however, tells a broader story, one of blending and adaptation as they integrated into a new society. Modern Americans with German ancestry often discover through DNA testing that their lineage includes traces of British, Irish, or Native American ancestry, reflecting the complex history of migration and settlement. Brazil offers another fascinating chapter in the story of German DNA. In the 19th century, German immigrants established colonies in southern Brazil, such as Blumenau and Pomerode. These communities maintained their language and traditions, and their genetic legacy can still be seen in the high prevalence of German ancestry among people in these regions today. DNA studies reveal a remarkable preservation of genetic markers tied to regions like Bavaria and Pomerania, even after generations of living thousands of miles from Europe. German DNA also intersects with some of history's darkest chapters. The Holocaust and World War II left a profound impact on Germany's genetic makeup. Millions of Jews, Roma, and other minorities who had lived in Germany for centuries were brutally murdered or forced to flee. Many survivors settled in countries like the United States, Israel, and Canada, carrying with them a blend of German and Ashkenazi Jewish DNA. Their stories are a testament to survival and resilience, and their genetic contributions continue to shape the modern world. After World War II, Germany experienced another wave of migration. Displaced populations from East Prussia, Pomerania, and Silesia were forced westward, mingling with the local populations and reshaping the genetic map of post-war Germany. At the same time, modern Germany became a destination for immigrants from Turkey, the Middle East, and Africa, further enriching the diversity of its genetic landscape. Today, Germany is one of the most ethnically diverse countries in Europe, and its DNA reflects that. It's a mix of ancient Germanic roots, Slavic influences, Jewish ancestry, and modern immigration, all combining to create a vibrant and dynamic population. This diversity is one of Germany's greatest strengths, a living reminder of how interconnected the world has always been. German DNA also serves as a lens through which we can understand global history. It's a record of ancient migrations, medieval expansions, and modern diaspora. It connects us to stories of triumph and tragedy, resilience and innovation. Every genetic marker tells a story, and together, they weave a narrative that is both deeply personal and universally human. As we look to the future, the legacy of German DNA continues to evolve. Globalization and migration are creating new connections and blending ancestries in ways we've never seen before. For those of German descent, exploring this legacy isn't just about understanding the past. It's about embracing the richness of a shared human story. So, what does the legacy of German DNA mean to you? Whether your ancestry ties you to a small village in Bavaria, a bustling city in America, or a distant colony in Brazil, your DNA carries the echoes of a global story. And by uncovering these connections, you're not just learning about your heritage. You're becoming part of the next chapter in a legacy that spans the world. When we think about DNA, it's easy to focus on science, genetic markers, haplogroups, and ancestry percentages. But what makes DNA truly meaningful isn't just the data. It's the stories it uncovers and the connections it creates. German DNA, with its rich and complex history, offers more than a glimpse into the past. It invites us to feel something deeper: pride, curiosity, and even responsibility. For many, the journey into their German DNA begins with a simple question: who am I? This isn't just a search for scientific answers. It's a quest to understand identity. German ancestry is a story of survival and resilience. Your DNA carries the struggles and triumphs of generations who faced wars, migrations, and cultural upheavals, yet managed to preserve their lineage and traditions. Take a moment to imagine the lives of your ancestors. Perhaps they were farmers in the rolling hills of Bavaria, laboring to provide for their families. Or maybe they were merchants in the bustling cities of the Rhineland, trading goods that connected Europe to the wider world. These aren't just abstract figures in history. They're the reason you're here today. For many people of German descent, uncovering their ancestry creates a powerful emotional connection. It's one thing to know that you're part German. It's another to discover the villages your ancestors called home, the hardships they endured, and the paths they traveled to build a better life. DNA testing can bridge the gap between past and present, turning history into a personal narrative that resonates deeply. But German DNA isn't just about pride. It's also about reflection. Germany's history includes moments of great achievement and terrible tragedy. For descendants of Jewish or Roma ancestry, exploring German DNA can mean confronting the painful legacies of the Holocaust and centuries of persecution. Yet, these stories also carry profound lessons about resilience, hope, and the strength to rebuild. In modern Germany, this reflection is known as Erinnerungskultur, or the culture of remembrance. It's a commitment to acknowledging the darker chapters of history while striving to build a future rooted in justice and inclusivity. For those with German ancestry, understanding this cultural ethos can create a deeper appreciation for the complexities of identity. What's remarkable about German DNA is its ability to connect people across the globe. Descendants of German immigrants in America, Brazil, Australia, and beyond often share an emotional bond with one another, even if their family stories took very different paths. DNA testing can reveal these connections, turning distant relatives into new friends and sparking a sense of belonging that transcends borders. Some people even discover lost family connections through DNA testing. Imagine the joy of finding a relative in another country, someone who shares not just your DNA but your curiosity about where you come from. These discoveries remind us that we're all part of a larger family, linked by threads of ancestry that stretch back through time. For those who uncover surprising results, like traces of Jewish or Roma heritage, or even unexpected ties to neighboring cultures, German DNA can be a source of both wonder and self-discovery. It challenges the idea of identity as something fixed, showing us instead that we are the product of countless influences and migrations. And yet, this complexity is what makes the journey so rewarding. Each discovery adds a new layer to your understanding of yourself and your place in the world. It's a reminder that identity isn't just something we inherit, it's something we shape through the stories we tell and the connections we make. Exploring German DNA also comes with a sense of responsibility. It's a chance to honor the sacrifices of your ancestors, preserve their stories, and pass them on to future generations. By understanding where you come from, you gain the tools to navigate where you're going, and to share that journey with others. So, as you dive into the world of German DNA, take a moment to reflect on what it means to you. Is it about discovering your roots, connecting with family, or perhaps finding a sense of belonging in a story that's bigger than yourself? Your DNA isn't just a map of your ancestry. It's a bridge to the past, a key to the present, and a guide to the future. What will you discover about yourself? And how will you carry those stories forward?